Bonjour French 1. The purpose of this video is to introduce the idea of plural nouns, as in more than one person, place, or thing. But before we can get into that, this is definitely a grammar concept that you need to hear the explanation for. So if you can't tell from your screen, right now you need to make sure that either your volume is up or your headphones are in. You need to hear this lesson. This is not one with normal vocab words where you can just copy it down and figure out the meaning. This requires some explanation. So when it comes to plural nouns, in order to make the most of the nouns in the French language, whether it's person, place, thing, or idea, plural, as in more than one, you have to add an S to the end, which is what we do in English, right? If you want to change it from a poster to multiple posters, you add an S to posters. A poster becomes some posters. We change our indefinite article as well. A chair becomes some chairs. Same thing happens in French. You switch it from a poster, which in French is un poster. You'll have to change the A to some, so un becomes des, so that it's plural, and poster becomes posters with an S. Des posters, some posters. Same thing with a chair becoming some chairs. The A has to change to some, which is des, as you learned in the previous lesson, and chair becomes chairs with an S at the end, which is chaise. You don't always hear the S at the end. So that's pretty simple stuff. Again, I pointed out how the article has to change as well, because otherwise if you just say un posters and you add an S to it, it's like you're saying a posters, which doesn't make any sense. So try switching these over. I know it's right there on your paper for you, and you might have already copied it down. But if you want to change a book, which in French is un livre, to some books, you have to change the A to some, so un becomes des, and then book becomes books by adding an S. Des livres are some books. Same thing with a window. If you want to change it to some window, the A, which is une, has to change to des, and the word for window has to have an S added to it. Des fenêtres are some windows. Pretty basic stuff in the normal situations. But just like in English, French has some tricky exceptions. In English, we have this, I promise you. It's things like the word foot. You don't say that you have 2 foots, you say that you have 2 feet. So there are some irregular plurals that are formed in the French language, just like in English, where you don't just add an S. And there's a lot more examples other than just the foot, feet thing in English if you start to think about it, like fish doesn't change, things like that. So here are the 3 exceptions or tricky things about the French language where it's not just as simple as adding an S. The first thing is, and this is a really random thing, but so is foot becoming feet, in French people's defense. If your noun, your person, place, thing, or idea, ends in the letters E-A-U, really random, right? Except we had 2 words like that in our notes this section, tableau and bureau. In order to make it plural, you do not add the letter S, you actually add the letter X. Really strange, but if you want to take it from a board, as in a whiteboard, to some boards, then you have to change the A to some, and then instead of adding an S to tableau, the reason why it's on the exceptions list is you have to add an X. It's still just pronounced des tableaux, but you spelled differently. Same thing with a desk becoming some desks. Change the A to some, change desk to desks, but the way you do that is not by adding an S. If it ends in an E-A-U, you have to add the letter X. Des bureaux are some desks. So that's the first exception. It doesn't happen a lot. Obviously, you only have the 2 exceptions on your list, but it's good to know because you might have to use some of these words sometime. The second thing that happens is there are some words that never change, whether it's singular or plural. And I just gave you the example in English of fish. Whether it's 1 fish or 2 fish, you don't have multiple fishes. It's just not how it works. Same thing happens in the French language with the words for CD and DVD. Even though you still change the word A to some, you actually don't add the letter S to CD or DVD in French. Don't really have a good reason for you. Why don't we add an S to fish? It's one of those random things that happens in the language, but you need to know it because CD and DVD are on our list in this section as being vocab words. So if you want to say some CDs, you say des CD. If you want to say some DVDs, you say des DVD, and you don't add an S to either of them. The other thing that I wanted to point out is something that's tricky. It doesn't really break the rule, but a lot of people don't know where to put the S on the lecteur ones, on the players, the CD player, the DVD player. Because there's multiple words to the actual vocab word, a lot of people get confused about do you add the S here or here or here. I'm here to answer that for you. You add it to the players part, the lecteur part. And you think about it in English, you have multiple CD players, and we add an S to the player part as well. It's just in a different spot in the French language. So instead of un lecteur de CD, you change the un to des, you change lecteur by adding the S, and you end up with des lecteurs de CD. Again, not anything that really breaks the rule, but something that you might have had a little trouble with.